The elevator doors opened on the 42nd floor, and for just a moment the city looked the way it does in movies. Lake Michigan going dark at the edges, the skylines catching gold from the last of the sunset, and the kind of hush that only exists up high, above all the noise. I stepped out with my heart doing something embarrassing in my chest. Stupid, maybe, to get emotional over a restaurant. But I had worked for this. Not just tonight, for years. The reservation was mine. I'd made it 6 weeks out, because Aurelius fills up fast, because it's the kind of place where you bring someone you want to impress, and for once I wanted to bring myself. Today was my 30th birthday, and 3 days ago I'd been promoted to senior UX designer at a firm I'd clawed my way into straight out of college. I had a reason to be here. My mother and my younger sister were already at the table when I arrived. They were on dessert. I stopped in the middle of the dining room, white tablecloths, candlelight, the soft murmur of other people's conversations, and there they were. My mother with a spoonful of creme brulee halfway to her mouth, my sister laughing at something on her phone, 2 empty dinner plates pushed to the side, wine glasses nearly drained. They'd ordered, eaten, and made it all the way to dessert, without me. There she is. My sister looked up and grinned like nothing was unusual. We were starting to wonder. I walked to the table slowly because I wasn't sure what I'd say if I got there too fast. You already ate. My mother set down her spoon with the measured grace she uses when she wants to seem unbothered. We weren't sure how late you'd be. I texted you. I said I was 20 minutes behind. Traffic is always bad on Friday, sweetheart. We didn't want to let a reservation like this go to waste. I stood there looking at the empty plates, the used napkins, the evidence of an entire dinner I hadn't been present for. My birthday dinner. You could have waited 20 minutes. You could have been on time, my sister said, not looking up from her phone. I sat down. I didn't know what else to do. A server materialized immediately, kind and professional, and slid a menu in front of me. I opened it without really seeing the words. My mother and sister kept talking around me, something about a sale at Nordstrom, something about a cousin I barely knew. I was there and not there at the same time, like a guest at my own birthday. I ordered a glass of wine and something from the menu I chose at random. When it arrived, I ate 3 bites. The food was probably wonderful, I couldn't tell. Then my sister pushed a black folder across the table toward me. Here you go, birthday girl. She was smiling, your gift. I opened it. It was the bill, both of their meals, 2 glasses of wine each, the desserts, $240 before tip. You're joking, I said. You make the most money, she said simply, and you picked the expensive place. I picked it for my birthday. So then you should treat us. She shrugged, like this was math, like this was obvious. Come on, you just got promoted, you can afford it. I looked at my mother. She looked back at me with an expression that was almost sympathetic, almost apologetic, but not quite either one. It would mean a lot, she said quietly. Something shifted inside me. Not anger, not yet, something quieter. The realization that this was not a misunderstanding. That they had planned this or at least accepted it and didn't think it was wrong. I set the folder back down on the table. No. My sister blinked. What? I'm not paying for meals I didn't eat with people who didn't bother to wait for me. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Not tonight. Not on my birthday. You're being dramatic, my mother said. You're being ungrateful, my sister said. I picked up my bag, stood up, and went to find the server. I paid for my own wine and the food I'd barely touched. Then I walked back to the elevator without saying goodbye. The street outside was cold in that specific October way, damp and sharp, and I stood on the sidewalk not knowing quite where to go. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I pulled out my phone and called Adrian. Hey, he said, picking up on the second ring, how's dinner? Can you come get me? A pause. I'm already in the car. He didn't ask questions. He found me on the corner 2 blocks from the restaurant and pulled up in his old Subaru with the broken heat vent on the passenger side that we'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. I got in. He looked at my face and said nothing, just pulled back into traffic. We drove for a while in silence. He took us out of downtown along the lake to a small bar with low lighting and no televisions, the kind of place that's been there for 40 years and doesn't need to advertise. We sat in a corner booth. He ordered us both coffee without asking. Tell me, he said. I told him, all of it. The empty plates, the wine glasses, the bill in the folder, my sister's face when I said no. By the time I finished, my coffee had gone cold. Adrian listened without interrupting, which is something not everyone knows how to do. That's not okay, he said finally. My mother basically said I was ungrateful. For not paying for a birthday dinner you weren't invited to participate in. He shook his head slowly and looked at me with that steadiness he has. Not the kind that dismisses you, but the kind that holds you in place so you don't drift away from yourself. You're not wrong. You weren't wrong about any of it. Just those words, but the certainty behind them broke something loose in my chest. I pressed my fingers against my eyes. I keep thinking about all the times I've let things like this go, I said. Not this bad, but things. My sister borrowing money she never paid back, my mother forgetting my college graduation because she had plans. Little stuff, medium stuff, it adds up. It really does. Adrian reached across the table and covered my hand with his. What do you want to do? I didn't have an answer yet, but for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe. We went back to his apartment. It was after 11, and I was tired in a way that went beyond the body. I sat on his couch while he disappeared into the kitchen. When he came back, he was carrying a small plate, one of those grocery store cupcakes, the kind with the thick ring of frosting, a single birthday candle stuck in the center. It's not Aurelius, he said. It's better, I said. He lit the candle. I closed my eyes. I made a wish, not for money or career or any of the things I used to wish for. I wished to stop shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never meant to hold me. I blew out the candle. Happy birthday, Adrian said, and handed me a fork. The next morning, my mother called. About last night, she began, her voice doing that careful thing it does when she wants to seem reasonable. I hope you understand we weren't trying to upset you. Your sister is just under a lot of pressure lately. She handed me a $240 bill on my birthday, Mom. It was meant as a joke. It didn't feel like one. You've always been so sensitive, she sighed. We just thought you'd be happy to treat us. You're doing so well. I said I had to go, and I ended the call. My sister texted an hour later, relax, it was literally a joke, stop being like this. I didn't respond. What I did instead was check my credit report. I'd been meaning to do it for months. I pulled it up that morning more out of restless energy than anything deliberate. There were 3 accounts I didn't recognize. A retail credit card opened 18 months ago, another one 14 months ago, a third 9 months ago. Total balance across all 3, just over $9,000. I sat very still at my kitchen table for a long time. Then I started making calls. The first card had been opened with my social security number, my old address, my mother's house where I'd grown up, and a phone number I didn't recognize, which turned out to be my sister's secondary line. The other 2 were identical in structure. All 3 accounts were past due. 2 were already in collections. My sister had been using my identity to open credit accounts for nearly 2 years. I called Adrian. My voice was flat when I explained it, flatter than I expected, because the anger hadn't arrived yet, just this cold crystalline clarity. She used your name, he said. My name, my social, my old address, 18 months of charges, clothes mostly, some electronics, a weekend trip to Nashville. He was quiet for a moment. This is fraud. I know. This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is a crime. I know, I paused. I want to sue her. Okay, his voice didn't waver. My colleague knows a civil litigation attorney. She's handled financial fraud cases before. I'm going to get you her number right now. I'd never thought of myself as someone who sues people. I'd grown up being told that family works things out, that you don't air your grievances publicly, that loyalty means absorbing damage without complaint. But sitting at my kitchen table with my credit report on the screen, I felt something change in me permanently, like a bone resetting after being broken for too long. Loyalty has to be earned, and mine had run out. I confronted my sister on the phone, with notes in front of me, because I knew she'd try to redirect the conversation. I found the accounts, I said. A pause. What accounts? The 3 credit cards you opened in my name. Over $9,000. Another pause, longer this time. Then, to my absolute disbelief, she laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my God, seriously? I figured you'd never even notice. You figured I'd never notice. Your credit's fine. You have money. I needed stuff, and I didn't have another option. You could have asked me. You would have said no. I was so stunned by the honesty of that statement that I almost couldn't respond. She was right. I would have said no, and she had decided that her want was worth more than my answer, so she went around it. I'm filing a police report, I said, and I have a lawyer. The laughter stopped. You're not serious. I am. We're family. Don't. The word came out hard and final. Don't say that to me right now. My mother called 4 times that afternoon. I answered once. You can't do this, she said. She's your sister. She committed fraud. She made a mistake. She's young. She's 26. She's been doing this for 18 months. That's not a mistake. That's a strategy. My mother's voice shifted, got quieter, got harder. You've always thought you were better than us, ever since you got that job, ever since you moved downtown. I thought about all the ways I'd tried not to make them feel left behind, Picking up dinner tabs, helping my sister pay for a semester of school she eventually dropped out of, calling every Sunday even when I had nothing to say. "I never thought I was better than you," I said. "I just thought I was worth something." I hung up and didn't answer again. My father called 3 days later. He and my mother had separated when I was in high school, and we'd never been particularly close. He was the kind of parent who was present in the house but somehow still absent, always in another room, always adjacent to fatherhood without quite inhabiting it. But he called, and his voice was different from my mother's, quieter, less certain. "I heard what happened," he said. "Both things, the dinner and the credit accounts." "Okay." "I didn't know about the accounts." A pause. "I want you to know that. I'm not making excuses for anyone. I'm sorry. I should have paid more attention. To a lot of things over a lot of years." It was the most direct thing he'd said to me since I was a teenager, and I didn't know what to do with it. I told him he could attend the pre-litigation meeting if he wanted to. We met in my attorney's conference room on a Tuesday afternoon. Ms. Whitaker, precise, competent, glasses on a chain, had arranged the room to make the situation's formality impossible to ignore. My sister and my mother arrived together, tight-faced, dressed like they'd prepared for something adversarial. My father came separately and sat at the far end of the table from them. Adrian sat beside me. His chair was close enough to mine that our arms touched, which was all the grounding I needed. My mother opened with what she'd clearly rehearsed. "This has gone too far. These things should be handled privately within the family." "Private would have been nice," I said before my credit score dropped 40 points. "You're ruining your sister's life over a few credit cards." Over $9,000 of debt opened in my name without my knowledge or consent. She needed help. Then she could have asked. My sister had been staring at the table. She looked up then, not at me, but at my father. Something passed between them that I didn't fully understand. My father cleared his throat. "I owe you an apology," he said, and at first I thought he was speaking to me, but he was still looking at my sister. "Both of you. I let this happen. The way this family worked, the way your sister was always expected to give more than she was given. I took the easy road for years and told myself everything was fine." He turned to me. "You earned everything you have. I never told you that. I should have, many times. I'm sorry." My mother made a sound I can only describe as dismissal. My sister looked at the window. I held myself together, barely. The civil case took 4 months. Ms. Whitaker documented every charge on every account. She also included the $3,000 I had lent my sister 2 years ago for a semester of school she'd since abandoned. Money I'd written off in my head but never officially forgiven. It went into the damages claim. My sister's attorney argued intent, family context, the informal nature of money between relatives. The judge was unmoved. The ruling came on a Thursday morning in February. I sat in the courtroom with Adrian beside me and Ms. Whitaker at the table. My father was in the gallery. My mother hadn't come. The judgment. My sister was ordered to repay $9,214 in fraudulent charges, the $3,000 loan, and $2,000 in legal costs and damages, over $14,000 total. My sister sat very still when the number was read. I felt something release in my chest, not triumph exactly, more like finally being able to exhale after months of holding my breath. We were walking out of the courthouse when my sister caught up to me on the front steps. The February air was sharp, the sky the flat white of a city winter. $14,000, she said. Her voice had no edge to it anymore, just a kind of disbelief. How am I supposed to come up with $14,000? I stopped. I turned and looked at her, really looked at her, the way I hadn't let myself in months. I thought about the black folder with the birthday bill inside. I thought about her voice saying, "You make the most money like that," absolved her of everything that came after. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," I said. "You managed to open 3 credit accounts in my name without breaking a sweat. 14,000 should be no problem." I walked down the steps and didn't look back. The weeks after the verdict were quieter than I'd expected. My mother sent 2 emails I read but didn't respond to. My sister sent nothing. My father texted once a week. Short messages, nothing demanding, just checking in. I started texting back. It was strange, the silence from the rest of them. I'd been bracing for it to hurt more than it did. Instead, it felt like setting down something heavy I'd been carrying for so long I'd stopped noticing the weight. Adrian and I moved in together in March. Nothing dramatic. We'd been splitting nights between 2 apartments for 2 years, and it seemed like the honest next step. We got a place on the north side with a small balcony and a view of someone else's rooftop garden. I cooked most nights. He finally fixed the heat vent in the Subaru. In April, I took a pregnancy test because I'd been tired in a way that felt different from ordinary tired. I sat on the bathroom floor for a while after seeing the result. Then I walked out to the living room where Adrian was reading and handed it to him without saying anything. He looked at it, looked at me, set his book down. "Well," he said. "Well," I said. He pulled me down onto the couch and held me, and I cried for the first time in months, not from grief or anger, but from the specific overwhelming feeling of realizing that life keeps moving forward whether you've resolved everything or not. That night I thought about my family for a long time, about what I wanted the word to mean going forward, about what kind of home I was building and who deserved to be in it. I didn't forgive my mother and sister. I want to be clear about that. Forgiveness is a long road, and I wasn't on it yet. But I thought about my father, who had started paying attention too late and was trying anyway. And I thought about the child who would grow up with whatever shape our family took from here. I called my father the next morning. "I have something to tell you," I said. "I'm not ready to talk to Mom or Lee yet, but I wanted you to know." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice I hadn't heard from him since I was very small, "I'll be there. Whatever you need." I believed him. Not entirely, not yet, but enough to take one step forward. Some things don't have clean endings. My mother and sister are still out there in the city, living their lives. My sister is working 2 jobs now to begin paying the judgment. My mother sends cards on holidays that I put in a drawer without opening. Maybe one day that changes. Maybe it doesn't. What I know is this. I had my 30th birthday over on a Saturday in April, 2 weeks after the positive test. Adrian made a reservation somewhere neither of us had been, a small Italian place with red checkered tablecloths that looks unfussy but serves the best pasta I've ever eaten. We were early. We had bread and wine, sparkling water for me, and we talked for 3 hours about nothing important and everything that was. No one handed me a bill. The candle on the dessert they brought out was the second one I'd blown out in 6 months. I made the same wish both times, or close enough. Something about not making myself smaller, something about finally taking up the space I'd earned. Standing at that table with the candle lit and Adrian across from me and a whole life still ahead of us, I thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Not the restaurant, not the occasion, just this, being somewhere you chose, with someone who chose you back, and no one waiting to hand you the cost of their happiness when you arrive. I closed my eyes. I blew out the candle,